In the kingdom of Kyria, North Africa, a sniper lies in wait with his partner, rifles locked on their target. But just as the man comes into view, the sniper hesitates. He knows this face. This isn't just any mission for him. The sniper is Cha Dalgun. A flashback takes us to Dalgun's past. While practicing taekwondo, he accidentally breaks his sparring partner's neck. Later, he injures his head, making his young nephew, Hoon, burst into tears. Dalgun quickly reassures him that he's fine, used to the pain. Despite the dangers of his job, he's a devoted guardian to Hoon, teaching him judo, karate, and taekwondo. Under his guidance, Hoon earns a black belt. Orphaned in an accident, Hoon relies solely on Dalgun, who is determined to raise him well. Meanwhile, Jessica Lee, director of John and Mark Asia, speaks at a government event. Her US-based weapons company is competing against Dynamic, a Korean aircraft manufacturer producing superior yet more affordable models. Still, Jessica insists that John and Mark's Thunder aircraft are the best, despite bidding $1 trillion higher. The government now faces a critical decision. Back home, Dalgun struggles to make ends meet as a stuntman. Hoon calls, worried about their overdue electricity bill. Dalgun tries borrowing money from a friend but is brushed off. Frustrated, Hoon throws out Dalgun's liquor bottles and stumbles upon an old handbook, a reminder of his uncle's abandoned dream of becoming Korea's Bruce Lee, crushed by financial hardships. During dinner, Hoon silently resents Dalgun's drinking but says nothing. Sensing his mood, Dalgun promises that one day, he'll earn enough to grant all of Hoon's wishes. He then hands Hoon an invitation. Korea's taekwondo team is heading to Morocco to celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations. Dalgun encourages him to go, but Hoon isn't interested. At the Korean embassy in Morocco, NIS agent Go Hae-ri rushes into a meeting, only to realize it ended long ago. The ambassador scolds her for her carelessness. As the agents leave, she discreetly locks the door and gets to work, her real mission. She carefully extracts a hidden device from a wall clock, but just then, an embassy agent, Kim Ha-sik, walks in, questioning her actions. Thinking fast, she claims she was changing clothes. Satisfied, he leaves, allowing her to stash the device inside her lipstick. Meanwhile, Jessica consults her lawyer, Hong Bum, about the government's leanings. He reveals that the president favors Dynamic, which alarms her. Frustrated, she pressures Michael Almeida, John and Mark's vice president, to take action. If they fail, she warns, they'll both be in serious trouble. Michael assures her he's working on it. A week later, Hoon prepares for his trip to Morocco but is still distant from Dalgun. Confused, Dalgun asks what's wrong, but Hoon simply says he wouldn't understand. Trying to make amends, Dalgun cooks him fried eggs, but Hoon refuses and walks away. Meanwhile, in Portugal, Michael Almeida is on the run. Chased by gangsters, he frantically tries to warn the airport. Boeing B-357, set to fly from Korea to Morocco that night, is doomed to crash. But before he can relay the full message, his phone is hacked, cutting him off. At the airport, Hoon waits for his flight, sending Dalgun a voice message that he's about to board. Families bid farewell. Among them, Park Kwang-deok celebrates with joy as his wife reveals her pregnancy. The Taekwondo team's coach also receives warm wishes from his sister, Cha-young, while other children exchange goodbyes with their parents. Meanwhile, Michael finally gets through to the airport using a public phone. Desperately, he warns an employee that Flight B-357 is going to crash and must be stopped. The employee is stunned, but before she can alert her colleagues, a sudden fire erupts in the airport office, throwing everything into chaos. Amidst the confusion, a mysterious figure attaches an electrical chip to her neck, knocking her unconscious. On board B-357, Hoon enjoys the flight with friends, recording on his phone. As he moves through the aisle, he accidentally bumps into a suspicious man and drops his phone. The stranger picks it up, returns it to him, and takes a seat, but Hoon can't shake his unease. Meanwhile, in the cockpit, Captain Kim Woogi speaks romantically in Spanish to his wife over the phone. In Portugal, Michael's escape comes to a tragic end as gangsters catch up to him and execute him. Elsewhere, NIS agent Hae-ri, armed with a gun, makes a call, reporting that Michael has done the unthinkable and all evidence has been erased. Back on the plane, the same suspicious man sneaks toward the engine under the guise of using the restroom. He tampers with the oxygen system, depleting the cabin air, forcing passengers to wear masks. Moments later, an explosion erupts, and the aircraft goes into a rapid descent. Hoon, mid-text to Dalgun, loses consciousness along with the other passengers. The plane crashes into the Moroccan Sea, erupting into flames, leaving no survivors. The next morning, news of the disaster floods the media. While eating, Dalgun sees the shocking report. Dynamics B-357 has crashed, killing all on board, including the Taekwondo team. Stunned and unable to process the loss, he struggles to eat, paralyzed by grief. Korea's President Jong Guk-pyo publicly mourns the tragedy, offering his condolences. Dalgun then receives footage of the flight before the crash, spotting Hoon on board. Overcome with sorrow, He breaks down in tears. But something catches his eye. The suspicious man Hoon bumped into is also in the footage. Shaken, Dalgun shuts his laptop, unable to bear the sight. As Dynamic Company takes public responsibility for the disaster, their officials hold a press conference. But grief-stricken families lash out, confronting them in outrage. Jessica, witnessing the turmoil, watches with satisfaction before walking away with a sinister smirk. The government arranges for the bereaved families to travel to Morocco for the funerals, with the Korean embassy hosting them. NIS agents Hae-ri and Kim Ha-sik serve as their guides. While at the airport washroom, Dalgun spots the very man from the footage, the suspicious passenger from the plane. His blood runs cold. The man is alive. Dalgun rushes after him, but the suspect escapes in a car. Jumping into a taxi, Dalgun gives chase, eventually catching up. Demanding answers, he asks how the man survived the crash. Instead of answering, the man pulls a gun and opens fire. Dalgun dodges and a brutal fight breaks out. Amidst the struggle, Dalgun notices a strange symbol on the man's chest. Though injured, Dalgun refuses to back down, using his taekwondo and judo skills to climb onto the rooftop, where he spots the suspect again. The man tries to steal a car, but Dalgun leaps from the roof onto the vehicle, forcing another fierce confrontation. Eventually, the man throws Dalgun off and speeds away. Meanwhile, the grieving families gather in a hall as Edward Park, CEO of Dynamic Company Asia, arrives to address them. The room erupts in fury, with Park Kwangdeok, a skilled karate master, nearly throwing a chair at Edward. But when he sees Edward standing his ground, openly acknowledging his company's faults, he restrains himself. Edward reveals that, like them, he once lost loved ones in a similar tragedy. He informs them that Dynamic's head office has agreed to offer compensation but urges them to take a stand and seek justice, reminding them that no amount of money can replace the lives lost. Just then, Dalgun, injured but determined, bursts into the room with a shocking revelation. The crash wasn't a technical failure. It was an act of terrorism. The room falls into stunned silence. Dalgun turns to Hae-ri, asking if she remembers seeing the suspect at the airport. He shows her footage of the man, but Hae-ri admits she doesn't recall his face clearly. When they review airport CCTV footage, the suspect is nowhere to be seen. Someone has altered the video. Dalgun, suspicious of Hae-ri, begins to follow her. Eventually, his search leads him to break into her home, determined to uncover the truth. While searching Hae-ri's home, Dalgun discovers a card identifying her as an agent of the Korean National Intelligence Service, NIS. Just then, Hae-ri receives a call, and Dalgun instructs her to answer it. The conversation confirms her identity and clears his doubts. She is in Morocco to apprehend a corrupt Korean ambassador involved in drug dealing and has no connection to the plane crash. Dalgun asks for her help in uncovering the truth behind the terrorist attack on B-357, insisting that, as an intelligence agent, it is her duty to bring the culprits to justice. Moved by his determination to avenge his nephew, Hae-ri agrees. Dalgun shares Hoon's final video with her, and she closely analyzes it, forwarding a copy to her colleague, Wasuk, for investigation. Meanwhile, at the Blue House, President Jong Guk-pyo, Prime Minister Hong Joo, Senior Secretary Yoon Han-ji, and Defense Minister Park Man-young debate whether to award the defense contract to Dynamic or John and Mark. The president argues that, given the public's loss of trust in Dynamic after the crash, John and Mark should be selected instead. However, Defense Minister Park counters that their higher costs would place a significant burden on national finances, insisting that aircraft accidents are common and Dynamic should still be considered. This leads to a heated argument between Yoon Han-ji, who supports John and Mark, and Park Man-young. The president eventually dismisses them both from the meeting. Back in Morocco, Hae-ri reports to her division head, Kang Joo-cheol, that her investigation into Michael's death in Portugal suggests he was murdered rather than having committed the unthinkable. Kang is shocked and eager for more details. Hae-ri arranges for the bereaved families to return to Korea, comforting them as they thank her for her support. Dalgun, however, refuses to leave. Determined to track down the terrorist, he stays behind in Morocco. But when he opens his laptop, he is stunned. Hoon's video has disappeared. Spotting a suspicious hotel employee, he chases after him and manages to catch up. However, before he can get answers, Moroccan police intervene and arrest them both. At the NIS office, Wasuk continues investigating Hoon's video, using advanced sound analysis to determine that the suspicious man on the plane was speaking Spanish. Meanwhile, Kim Ho-sik informs Hae-ri that Dalgun has been arrested. She rushes to the station, where Dalgun accuses the hotel employee of stealing the video. The employee denies it, frustrating Dalgun, who grabs him by the neck. The police threaten to shoot if he doesn't let go, but Hae-ri steps in just in time to defuse the situation. Dalgun is released but punished for breaking the law, while the hotel employee walks free. Later, Hae-ri visits Dr. Kevin Kim, who is conducting a forensic analysis of the plane crash. He plays sound recordings from before the disaster, revealing that pilot Kim Woo-gi was speaking in Spanish and using coded language. Comparing the recordings with the crash timeline, Hae-ri concludes that this was indeed a terrorist attack. As she leaves, Dr. Kevin Kim watches her with an unsettling gaze. Meanwhile, in prison, Kim Ho-sik bribes the authorities with 1,500 dirhams to secure Dalgun's release. He then takes Dalgun to a gas station, asking him to grab a drink. As Dalgun enters the shop, an armed man bursts in, threatening the store owner before turning his rifle on Dalgun. Thinking fast, Dalgun throws an air freshener into the microwave, causing a massive explosion. The attacker is injured but manages to escape, pursuing Kim Ho-sik's car. Despite Dalgun's attempts to fight back, the gunman fires, hitting Kim Ho-sik. Dalgun rushes him to the hospital, where doctors immediately take him into surgery. That night, Hae-ri returns to her apartment, only to be ambushed by a masked intruder. Fighting back, she overpowers him and retrieves a gun from her drawer, forcing him to remove his mask. To her shock, it's the same hotel employee Dalgun had accused earlier. She orders him to call his employer, and when he does, the phone rings in Kim Ho-sik's hospital room. Dalgun answers, stunned. Hae-ri explains that Kim Ho-sik orchestrated the attack against her. Alarmed, Dalgun rushes to the hospital, only to find Kim Ho-sik has escaped. He and Hae-ri give chase, ultimately capturing him. Pressing him for answers, they demand to know who he is working for. But before he can reveal much, a sniper takes aim from a nearby rooftop, ensuring his silence. Realizing the danger, Dalgun and Hae-ri take cover as gunfire rains down on them. Hae-ri attempts to call for backup while Dalgun, armed with her pistol, insists he can handle the situation. They strategize to reach the rooftop within the 3-second window when the sniper reloads. Dalgun provides cover fire and they sprint to safety. Just as the sniper prepares to fire again, a team of agents arrives, forcing him to retreat. Meanwhile, an unexpected order from high-ranking NIS officials sends a team to search Wasuk's division, citing privacy compliance. Hook desperately tries to protect a specific flash drive, one containing Hoon's video, but doesn't reveal its true contents. Instead, she claims it holds her private photos, pleading for its return. However, the officials insist they have direct orders to seize everything. On the other side, Hae-ri calls Kong Ju-cheol to report the assassination attempt on her and Dalgun. Kong urges her to return to Korea immediately and file a report. Reluctantly, Dalgun agrees to accompany her. Meanwhile, Jessica invites Defense Minister Park Man-young to an exclusive party, where she seduces him while leveraging files documenting his corruption. Cornered, Park has no choice but to agree to her demands, securing the FX deal in favor of her company. Shortly after, Jessica hires a professional assassin, Lily, paying her millions of won to eliminate Dalgun. Wasting no time, Lily devises her plan. During the flight back to Korea, an assassination attempt unfolds. In a simulated scenario, an attacker uses an electric chip to incapacitate Dalgun. However, the real attempt begins when Dalgun catches a reflection in Hae-ri's sunglasses. Someone is approaching from behind. Reacting instantly, he twists the attacker's arm, foiling the strike. The would-be assassin quickly hides the device and feigns innocence before slipping away. Now back in Korea, Dalgun and Hae-ri are greeted by Wasuk, who takes them to a restaurant. At the restaurant, Dalgun meets Joe, a local newspaper reporter who asks to speak with him privately. Joe reveals that he is investigating the B-357 plane crash and needs Dalgun's help in uncovering the truth. They meet privately at another restaurant, unaware that Hae-ri and Wasuk are secretly following them. The two women watch from a distance as Joe shares some startling information with Dalgun. Joe reveals that there is likely involvement from high-ranking government officials in the plane crash. He mentions that shortly before the plane's departure, an airport staff member received an anonymous call warning that the plane would crash. However, just as she began to inform others, a fire broke out, causing panic. In the chaos, someone attached a chip to her neck, rendering her unconscious, and she has been in a brain-dead coma ever since. Joe further explains that the recent government FX project is a controversial issue between the Dynamic and John and Mark companies, which could be linked to the crash. He suggests that John and Mark might have orchestrated the crash to ruin Dynamic's reputation. Hearing this, Dalgun is taken aback and begins to believe Joe's claims. Suddenly, Joe receives a call from an informant who claims to have information about the B-357 crash and has arranged to meet him at a hotel. When Dalgun inquires about the informant, Joe explains that the person insisted on keeping their identity private. Dalgun decides to accompany Joe to the hotel, and Joe agrees. As they head to the hotel, Hae-ri and Wasuk discreetly follow them. During the pursuit, Wasuk jokes with Hae-ri, suggesting that maybe Dalgun is more interested in men than women, but Hae-ri disagrees. Joe instructs Dalgun to wait outside while he meets with the informant in the hotel room, but before going in, he shares the room number with Dalgun. After waiting for a long time without any sign of Joe, Dalgun decides to check on him. When he enters the room, he's shocked and distressed to find that Joe has been brutally attacked. Just before dying, Joe hands Dalgun a pen. Dalgun quickly calls the police to report the incident, But suddenly the assassin who killed Joe attacks Dalgun as well. Dalgun manages to defend himself, and the assassin flees. Dalgun chases the attacker, who tries to escape on a motorcycle. Spotting Haeri's car nearby, Dalgun urges her to follow the fleeing assassin, but despite their efforts, the assassin manages to get away. By the time the police arrive at the hotel, all evidence of the murder has been meticulously erased. The police warn Dalgun to stay out of trouble and then leave the scene. Dalgun is left in disbelief, struggling to comprehend how such a clean cover-up could have been executed so quickly. He hands the pen that Joe gave him to Haeri, who discovers that it contains a hidden flash drive. When she connects it to her laptop, they uncover startling revelations. The drive holds details about B-357's pilot, Kim Woo-gi, and his offshore accounts, as well as information about a life insurance policy worth 5 billion won that would go to his wife, Oh Sang-mi, in the event of the plane's crash. Haeri quickly informs Dalgun about the shocking discoveries. At that moment, Dalgun is attending a gathering of the bereaved families, where they are in the process of appointing Oh Sang-mi as their representative. Just as this is happening, Dalgun bursts into the meeting and confronts Sang-mi, accusing her of fraud. He reveals to everyone that her husband, Kim Woo-gi, is actually alive and that she has been pretending to mourn while planning to collect a 5 billion won insurance payout. The attendees are stunned by these revelations, but Sang-mi denies the accusations, insisting that her husband is dead. Park Kwang, who is known for his short temper, grows frustrated with Dalgun's persistent accusations and tells him to drop the matter and let them grieve in peace. However, Dalgun refuses to back down, questioning how long they plan to ignore the truth. In a fit of anger, Kwang uses a judo move to knock Dalgun unconscious. Realizing his mistake immediately, Kwang feels guilty and carries Dalgun on his back to take him to the hospital. At this point, Edward Park arrives and decides to take Dalgun back to his office instead. Edward offers Dalgun a safe place to stay in his building, suggesting that he remain there for a while. Dalgun agrees, deciding to lay low for the time being. Meanwhile, Lily, the assassin hired to kill Dalgun, is carefully monitoring him from a building opposite Edward Park's. She is meticulously planning her next move. The next day, Kwang calls Dalgun to apologize for his actions the previous day. Dalgun forgives him, and Kwang suggests they meet at a restaurant. Initially hesitant, Dalgun eventually agrees. As Kwang arrives to pick Dalgun up, Lily, who has been observing them, orders her partner to hack into Kwang's car, disabling the brakes. The car begins to speed uncontrollably and eventually crashes. Despite the severity of the situation, Dalgun manages to save both himself and Kwang. Lily, realizing her plan has failed, retreats. Shaken by the experience, Kwang admits to Dalgun that he now believes him and acknowledges that someone is indeed trying to silence them. After their near-death experience, Dalgun and Kwang attend a nearby event where Jessica is showcasing her philanthropy by raising funds for cancer patients. At the event, Dalgun finally confronts Jessica face-to-face. He takes her aside and warns her that he will bring her and her company, John and Mark, to justice. Jessica tries to bribe Dalgun, but he refuses, asking her if she can bring his nephew, Hoon, back. Dalgun then addresses the reporters at the event, boldly declaring that the mastermind behind the plane crash is the John and Mark company. His statement creates a media frenzy, and when Jessica arrives, the reporters bombard her with questions, asking if Dalgun's claims are true. Jessica dismisses the allegations, insisting that they are completely false and unsupported by any evidence. Meanwhile, Haeri's division chief, Min Jae-sik, reprimands her for providing Dalgun with so much information. Haeri defends her actions, arguing that it is their duty to apprehend the criminals responsible for the plane crash. Min, however, orders Haeri to close the case immediately, threatening to transfer her to a remote location if she disobeys. On another front, Kang Joo-chul is closely examining photos from Michael's apparent suicide. He notices that the picture shows Michael using his right hand to take his own life, even though Michael was left-handed. This observation confirms Kang's suspicion that Michael was murdered and that his death was staged. Later that night, Haeri sneaks into the NIS office, hoping to retrieve the flash drive that was taken from Wasuk, which contains the video of Hoon. After an exhaustive search, she discovers that the file has been deleted from the system. She informs Dalgun, who is furious upon hearing the news. The next day, President Jong Gukpyo invites the bereaved families of the plane crash victims to the Blue House. Haeri sees this on the news and immediately calls Dalgun to inform him. Dalgun is surprised, as no one had informed him about the event. As he prepares to leave, Lily rings his doorbell. Believing it's a delivery, Dalgun opens the door, but Lily sprays him with a sedative, knocking him unconscious and taking him away in a fake ambulance. Inside the ambulance, Lily's partner is about to inject Dalgun with a lethal dose of potassium cyanide when Haeri arrives just in time to save him. Dalgun regains consciousness, fights back, and overturns the ambulance. Haeri quickly puts Dalgun in her car and speeds toward the Blue House. On the way, she shares a secret voice recording with Dalgun, a conversation she covertly recorded between Tae-young, and herself. In it, Taeyong reveals that someone within the NIS higher ranks deleted Hoon's video. Hae-ri urges Dalgun to play the recording at the Blue House to expose the truth. Concerned about her job, Dalgun warns that doing so might get her fired, but Hae-ri firmly responds that she values honesty more than her career. Determined to expose the truth, Dalgun sneaks into the Blue House and makes his way to the conference room where the president is meeting with the bereaved families. The guards try to stop him, but Dalgun fights them off. Eventually, Prime Minister Hong arrives and grants Dalgun access to the conference hall. Inside the conference room, Dalgun plays a voice recording in front of President Jong Gukpyo and top government officials. The shocking revelation leaves everyone speechless. Furious, the president demands an explanation from NIS Director On, questioning why such crucial information was kept from him. Dalgun further exposes that the plane's pilot, Kim Woo-gi, is still alive and that the insurance payout was intended for his wife, Oh Sang-mi. The room erupts in chaos. Overwhelmed, Sang-mi fakes a heart attack and collapses, leading to her immediate hospitalization. Later, Senior Secretary Yoon Han-ji takes Dalgun to NIS headquarters, assuring him that he's safe and that the agency will now handle the investigation. However, Jessica refuses to back down. After Lily's failure, she hires an even deadlier assassination group to eliminate Dalgun. One assassin infiltrates the NIS headquarters disguised as a food delivery worker, drugging the agents with sedative-laced meals. Though Hae-ri eats only a little, she too loses consciousness. With everyone down, the assassin enters Dalgun's room, expecting him to be vulnerable. However, Dalgun is nowhere to be found. Suddenly, Dalgun ambushes the intruder, sparking a brutal fight. They exchange heavy blows, and the assassin gains the upper hand, preparing to shoot Dalgun. At the last second, Hae-ri regains consciousness and fires, killing the attacker and saving Dalgun's life. Dalgun and Hae-ri search the assassin's phone and are stunned when Min Jae-sik answers the latest call, asking if Dalgun has been eliminated. Realizing Min is behind the assassination attempt and is working as a mole inside NIS, they're left in shock. Hae-ri quickly notifies Kong and secretly deletes the CCTV footage, making it appear as though Dalgun was killed. Meanwhile, Min meets Sang-mi at the hospital, coaching her on how to respond during questioning to avoid suspicion. When Kong interrogates her, she sticks to Min's script and manages to dodge any blame. However, Kong discreetly instructs Wasuk to plant a tracker on her phone. After being released, Sang-mi heads to a church, unaware that Captain Taeyong and his team are tailing her. Inside, she retrieves an old phone hidden behind a picture frame and contacts Kim Woo-gi, who is hiding in a rundown house in Morocco. She reassures him that their plan is still on track, lifting his spirits. However, Taeyong and his team close in and arrest her, recording every word she says. Just as they prepare to transport her for further questioning, a truck rams into their vehicle, leaving them wounded. The attackers, hired by Min and Jessica, kidnap Sang-mi. Kong arrives at the scene, ordering Taeyong's team to the hospital for treatment. Elsewhere, Kim Do-soo, the brother of the assassin who targeted Dalgun, calls his sibling, only for Dalgun to answer. Mocking him, Dalgun announces that his brother is now in hell, enraging Kim Do-soo, who vows revenge. Meanwhile, Kong orders Hae-ri to track down Min Jae-sik. She locates him drinking with Director On at a bar, but when she attempts to arrest him, he narrowly escapes. Jessica seizes the moment, offering Min protection and persuading him to join her. The following day, grieving families demand justice through the media, with Edward Park in attendance. He instructs his assistant, Mickey, to leak photos of Jessica's secret meetings with government officials to the press. As Dalgun rides with Kwang, he suddenly spots Joe, the journalist presumed dead. Stunned, he chases after him, but his pursuit is interrupted by Edward Park. Meanwhile, Kim Do-soo tortures Sang-mi, demanding she reveal her husband's location. She refuses to talk, but Jessica steps in with an ultimatum. If Sang-mi exposes Kim Woo-gi's whereabouts and publicly blames him and Dynamic for the plane crash, she'll be spared. With no other choice, Sang-mi reluctantly agrees. Elsewhere, Hae-ri receives the leaked photos from Edward Park and hands them to Kong, who presents them to Director On. Kong argues that if they want to uncover the full truth, he should lead the investigation. Director On agrees and grants him full authority over the case. Using Sang-mi's recent call logs, Kong tracks Kim Woo-gi to a slum in Morocco, though his exact location remains unclear. Taeyong and his team fly to Morocco immediately, unaware that Dalgun has secretly boarded the plane. Hae-ri is surprised to see him but agrees to keep quiet. Dalgun insists that he doesn't trust NIS and wants to find Kim Woo-gi himself. Meanwhile, Kim Woo-gi destroys his phone, making it even harder to locate him. Despite deploying drones, Taeyong's team struggles to track him down. Jessica bribes Moroccan police, instructing them to find Kim Woo-gi before the NIS does. Back in Korea, Kong raids Jessica's home. At the same time, Dalgun, moving in the shadows, continues his own search. Suspicious of his actions, the NIS team begins trailing him. Eventually, Dalgun spots telltale plastic water bottles on a rooftop, a sign that Koreans live there, as they don't drink the local water. He infiltrates the house, confronts Kim Woo-gi, and beats him down. Just then, Moroccan police arrive, having tracked Kim Woo-gi's location. They arrest both him and Dalgun. The NIS agents try to intervene but fail to secure Kim Woo-gi's release, leading to both men being locked up together. Meanwhile, Kong grills Jessica, presenting irrefutable evidence, but she denies everything. After hours of interrogation, Director On orders her release. As she walks free, Jessica warns Kong that he will regret this, promising that soon he'll be the one in trouble. Later, Taeyong updates NIS headquarters, confirming they found Kim Woo-gi and will begin questioning him soon. Upon hearing this, Jessica panics. Acting quickly, Taeyong arranges for Dalgun and Kim Woo-gi's release, moving Kim Woo-gi to the Korean embassy for protection. At the same time, Hong Sung-beom and Min Jae-sik conspire to eliminate Kim Woo-gi once and for all, confident that their plan will succeed. That night, Secretary Yoon Han-ji invites Director N to his home and begins blackmailing him. Min also arrives, and Yoon presents evidence of An's corruption, threatening to expose it to the media unless An agrees to replace the NIS team in Morocco that found Kim Woo-gi. Furious, Director N leaves. Min then hires Lily and Kim Do-soo to assassinate Kim Woo-gi, and they head to Morocco to carry out the plan. At the embassy, Taeyong and his team begin interrogating Kim Woo-gi, but he refuses to cooperate, giving no clear answers. Daljeon loses his temper and starts beating him. Kim Woo-gi falls off his chair and begins writhing in pain. They realize he is a drug addict and he starts begging for drugs. Taeyong tries to give him a painkiller, but Daljeon stops him, insisting this is their chance to make him confess. This leads to a fight between Daljeon and Taeyong. However, Hae-ri picks up the injection and tells Kim Woo-gi that if he doesn't tell the truth, he won't get the injection. On the verge of death, Kim Woo-gi finally admits that John and Mark's vice president Michael paid him $5 million to crash the plane. Hae-ri immediately gives him the injection, saving his life. Afterward, Taeyong's team prepares to take Kim Woo-gi to the airport to fly him back to Korea. However, the Moroccan police direct them to take a different route, leading them into a trap. Assassins open fire on their cars, killing several NIS agents. Daljeon and Hae-ri, following behind, hear the gunfire. Daljeon speeds up towards Taeyong's team. Meanwhile, Taeyong and his team bravely fight off the assassins, but Kim Woo-gi is shot in the leg, leaving him injured. Daljeon and Hae-ri arrive just in time to help, and they all rush back to the embassy. Taeyong informs Kong about the attack and Kim Woo-gi's critical condition. Kong is deeply worried. Meanwhile, Min sends his men to the embassy to finish off Daljeon and Kim Woo-gi. Min then taunts Kong, saying he ruined his plan. Furious, Kong attacks Min, but Director N arrives and orders Kang's arrest. Kong is devastated and asks Director N if he has also joined the ranks of the corrupt. Jessica, now freed from NIS headquarters, sees Kong in handcuffs and smiles at him. Back at the embassy, Taeyong and the others bring Kim Woo-gi inside. Taeyong calls a doctor for instructions on performing surgery. With the doctor's guidance over a video call, they manage to remove the bullet from Kim Woo-gi's leg, but he has lost a lot of blood. Hae-ri recalls from the files that Kim Woo-gi's blood type is O. Fortunately, Daljeon also has type O blood and donates some to save Kim Woo-gi's life. When Jessica learns that the plan to kill Kim Woo-gi has failed, she becomes anxious. However, Min remains confident, revealing that he has sent an NIS Black Ops team to the embassy to eliminate everyone. Meanwhile, Sang-mi visits the media headquarters to request permission to hold a press conference. As Kong is being taken away after his arrest, he manages to knock out the guards, steals one of their phones, and calls the media division of President Go. He tells the reporter that there are many traitors within NIS trying to cover up the plane crash and that Secretary Yoon is also involved. The reporter immediately writes that down and hands the note to the president's assistant. Suddenly, Yoon arrives and forbids her from showing it to the president. At that moment, Prime Minister Hong shows up, takes the note, and tears it up on the spot. Meanwhile, the press conference has already started, and Sang-mi places all the blame for the plane crash on her husband and dynamic company. This shocks Edward Park and causes an uproar in the media. On another front, Wasuk, trying to help Kong, dials a secret number. The number belongs to a local chicken restaurant owned by the widow of the former NIS chief. However, Min and his men are monitoring Wasuk's calls, but she cleverly uses a code word, vagabond, which Min's men fail to recognize. Later, the assassins sent by Min arrive at the Korean embassy, pretending to be NIS agents sent to help. Suddenly, the chicken restaurant owner calls Taeyong, warning him that these agents are actually assassins. Taeyong is shocked. Director N also calls Taeyong, revealing that Daljeon and Kim Woo-gi will be killed tonight, and that if Taeyong resists, he will be killed as well. Taeyong is stunned to realize that even the NIS director is part of the conspiracy. The Black Ops agents then attack Daljeon, but he fights back fiercely, capturing their commander and holding a gun to his head. Hae-ri also takes Kim Woo-gi with her. The Black Ops agents have their guns aimed at Daljeon and Hae-ri, but at that moment, Taeyong cuts off the power, allowing Daljian and Haeri to escape. As they flee, Taeyong appears to aim his gun at them but actually shoots at the Black Ops agents behind them. He urges them to take Kim Woogi to a safe zone. They barely make it to the safe zone, but the Black Ops team doesn't give up and blasts their way inside with a bomb. A fierce gunfight ensues until Daljian and the others run out of bullets. They still have an underground secret bomb, but it needs more time to activate. The Black Ops commander, seeing they're out of bullets, smugly approaches, whistling, but Daljian stops him, warning that there's a time bomb under the room and only he can deactivate it. The commander hesitates but then orders his unit to open fire. Just then, the bomb explodes. Daljian narrowly escapes using his ninja skills while all the Black Ops soldiers are killed. Taeyong then tells Haeri and Daljian to take Kim Woogi and leave, saying he'll handle the traitors at headquarters. Before they part ways, he gives Haeri a code word and tells her to call a specific number for help. Taeyong calls headquarters and informs them that Haeri and Daljian have escaped with Kim Woogi and that the soldiers they sent have been killed. Min and Director N are shocked that their plan failed and immediately instruct him to return to Korea. Meanwhile, Daljian, Haeri, and Kim Woogi escape the embassy through an underground tunnel and meet Mickey, Edward Park's assistant, who takes them to a safe zone. Elsewhere, Min gives an agent a bottle of poison, instructing him to mix it into Kang's food. When Kang eats, he collapses and is rushed to the hospital, where he is declared dead. This news spreads like wildfire across all NIS divisions, leaving everyone emotional. Back with Mickey, as she takes Daljian and the others, the police stop them. Mickey shows them a symbol on her arm, convincing the police to let them go. In a separate incident, the head of the Moroccan police is shot and killed for failing to do his job. Now, Daljian and Haeri are on a container ship at sea with Kim Woogi. Haeri calls the number Taeyong gave her and uses the code word vagabond, which is recognized by the restaurant owner. To Haeri's surprise, Kang answers the phone. She is shocked that he is alive and asks how this is possible. Kang reveals that the restaurant owner had warned him about the poison and prepared an antidote in advance. While everyone believed he was dead, a nurse secretly administered it, saving his life. He warns Haeri to stay cautious and keep their location hidden from the NIS. Meanwhile, Koo Jang-soo, the restaurant owner's son and an expert hacker, helps Haeri and Dalgun by masking their location. He spreads false information worldwide, leaving NIS headquarters confused. Some believe they are in China, others in India, making their exact location untraceable. At the same time, Kim Woogi escapes his restraints, grabs Haeri, and demands a boat from Dalgun, threatening to kill her if his demands aren't met. Using the combat skills Dalgun taught her, Haeri overpowers and defeats him. In the National Assembly, a bill for an extra $1 trillion passes, securing the FX deal for John and Mark. At the Blue House, officials celebrate. Yoon Hangi invites Jessica to a restaurant, congratulates her, and orders her to transfer a $500 million commission to the president's offshore account, Deep Blue. Dalgun questions Kim Woogi about any evidence linking Michael to the plane crash. Kim Woogi reveals that Michael had a girlfriend who was the true mastermind. She introduced him to Michael and orchestrated the entire plot. Haeri and Dalgun devise a plan to trap the NIS headquarters staff. Haeri calls them, pretending to surrender, and claims Dalgun is taking Kim Woogi to India. Min falls for the deception and prepares to move, but he notices that the time on Haeri's watch matches South Korea's time zone, not India's. Realizing the trick, he redirects his team to South Korea's port. Just in time, Haeri uses a coded message to inform Kang and Taeyong of the container number and arrival time. Taeyong arrives at the port with Kim Se-hun, preparing to leave with the container truck when Min's men ambush them with heavy gunfire. Haeri spots a car and suggests someone retrieve it. Taeyong volunteers, but Daljian insists he's faster and rushes off. Suddenly, a sniper eliminates several of Min's men. It's Kang, targeting them from a rooftop. Seizing the opportunity, Daljian gets the car, gathers Haeri and the others, and drives them to safety. Meanwhile, Jessica dines with President Gukpyo, impressing him with her charm. She accidentally mentions an oil drilling project in Kira, surprising the president, who wonders how she knows about it. Jessica brushes it off, claiming she heard it from a Saudi prince. After dinner, Yoon Han confronts Jessica about the Kira project but is interrupted by an urgent call from Min, who warns that Daljian's team is heading to court with Kim Woogi. Alarmed, Yoon Han rushes to inform President Gukpyo, who is shocked to learn the truth about the plane crash cover-up. Furious, Gukpyo calls Yoon Han a traitor, but Yoon Han warns that if they don't act, the public will uncover the president's $500 million offshore commission. Gukpyo immediately orders the police commissioner to mobilize city forces and set up roadblocks to stop Daljian. At the High Court, the hearing is underway with Sang-mi testifying. When the judge asks Edward Park for his witness, Edward states that Kim Woogi is on his way. Meanwhile, the police pursue Daljian's car, and Kai Jang-soo hacks into city CCTV cameras, broadcasting the chase live on social media. Public concern rises as people question why police are blocking access to the court. Judge On-song grants Edward Park a 30-minute extension to present Kim Woogi's testimony, despite the Chief Justice, under Yoon Han's influence, trying to end the session prematurely. Daljeon's car reaches a dead end, and the police surround them. Min orders them to open fire, but a news helicopter arrives, broadcasting the scene live, preventing an immediate attack. Yoon Han pressures the network to recall the helicopter, which then leaves, giving Min's team the chance to open fire. Just as Daljeon and his team take cover behind a soon-to-explode car, a truck arrives, offering protection. The driver urges them to flee. They continue towards the court, but their car breaks down, forcing them to go on foot. Outside the courthouse, a heavy police presence blocks them. The bereaved families, sensing corruption, attack the police, creating an opening for Daljeon and the others. Taeyong and Sehun help distract the officers. As they near the entrance, Lily, positioned on the courthouse rooftop, fires a shot that misses Kim Woogi and instead hits Hae-ri. A shootout ensues, and in the chaos, Daljeon and Hae-ri manage to get Kim Woogi inside. Defeated, Lily calls Jessica, reporting she was attacked by an unknown sniper. Inside the court, Kim Woogi confesses that John and Mark's vice president Michael paid him $5 million to orchestrate the plane crash. He provides a website and password where he stored a secret recording. The court accesses the video, showing Michael handing him money and revealing terrorist Jerome sabotaging the airplane engine. The shocking revelation stuns everyone. Judge On Song delivers the verdict. Dynamic is fined 10 billion won for negligence, which Edward Park accepts. The judge also declares John and Mark responsible and summons their executives. Min, realizing his downfall, attempts to flee and calls Yoon Han for help, but Yoon Han refuses, stating everything is over. Kong captures and beats Min, ensuring his arrest. Meanwhile, Hae-ri's condition worsens. Shocked, she notices her wound from the earlier attack. Daljeon carries her on his back, urgently calling for an ambulance. Outside, reporters bombard him with questions, but he chastises them for ignoring the case until now. He places Hae-ri in the ambulance and leaves a powerful message for the president, warning that silence is also a crime. President Gukpyo is shaken. That night, Gukpyo reflects deeply. The next day, at a press conference, he shifts all blame onto NIS Director N and Secretary Yoon Han. Director N is arrested, and Yoon Han, seeing no escape, takes his own life. Jessica, enraged by the court ruling, tells Hong Sung that her company shouldn't face charges since she bribed the president. Unbeknownst to her, Hong Sung secretly records their conversation. Later, at a press conference, Jessica expresses regret over the crash and promises compensation. However, the victims' families confront her, demanding justice over money. Suddenly, photos of Jessica's affair with Minister of Defense Park Man-young go viral, exposing her corruption. Embarrassed, she is arrested during the live broadcast. Meanwhile, Kim Woogi and Sang-mi are taken to jail. Kim Woogi secretly passes a note to Sang-mi, bringing her unexpected joy. Its contents reveal a secret that will soon secure her release. Jessica is later transferred to prison, where she calls Lily, instructing her to contact John and Mark's headquarters in the U.S. Lily initially hesitates, as Jessica's accounts are frozen, but Jessica provides offshore banking details, persuading her. Back at NIS headquarters, Hae-ri receives a hero's welcome but remains solemn as she prays for fallen agents. Meanwhile, Daljeon receives a cryptic message. Upon checking, he finds Lily waiting in a car. She tells him that if he wants to uncover the true mastermind behind the plane crash, he must visit Jessica in prison. Daljeon is left stunned by this revelation. Dalgun and Hae-ri visit Jessica in jail, where she denies involvement in Michael's murder. She reveals that Michael planned the plane crash, but she only learned of it afterward. She was focused on the FX project and suspects a bigger mastermind funded Michael's plans. Jessica also mentions Michael's girlfriend was very close to him before the crash. This revelation leaves Dalgun and Hae-ri puzzled. Meanwhile, Sang-mi, in hiding, checks her account balance. Desperate for payment, she calls an unknown number, threatening to expose everything if 20 billion won isn't deposited within 3 days. Kim Woogi is arrested and sent to a mental hospital due to drug addiction. When Dalgun and Hae-ri visit to question him, they are shocked to find Jerome, the terrorist behind the plane crash, working as hospital security. Jerome threatens Woogi, warning him to stay silent. Later, when Dalgun and Hae-ri try to speak to him in his cell, Woogi is terrified and unresponsive. As guards take him away, he shouts that R is in the hospital and will kill him, but they suspect his fear may be a delusion. Unexpectedly, it is revealed that Yoon Han survived his suicide attempt and is in a hospital under Prime Minister Hong's care. Hong saved him to gain access to files that could expose the president. Yoon Han provides the password and calls Hong the worst devil he's ever seen, but Hong claims he's just a patriot. Hong later calls Dalgun and the bereaved families to the Blue House, where he plays a recording of Jessica exposing a $500 million transaction to the president's offshore account. The media erupts, and President Gukpyo furiously brands Hong a traitor. Hong apologizes to the victims' families, regretting not helping sooner. Gukpyo visits Yoon Han in the hospital, unaware he's awake. Holding his hand, He laments Yoonhan's choices. After Gukpyo leaves, Yoonhan silently weeps. Meanwhile, Haeri struggles to walk due to her injured leg, and Dalgun carries her home, strengthening their bond. The next day, Gukpyo and Hong face off, deciding Parliament will determine who must resign. That night, Hong gathers the bereaved families at a hotel, vowing Gukpyo will be jailed as revenge. Dalgun accuses Hong of using them for his political gain, and the families grow suspicious. Meanwhile, assassins pursue Sangmi, but she escapes and calls Dalgun, revealing she knows a secret that has made her a target. Dalgun rushes to her, but Jerome ambushes him, leading to a deadly fight. During the chaos, another assassin fatally stabs Sangmi. Before dying, she draws a blood symbol and reveals Samuel is the mastermind. The police mistakenly arrest Dalgun, believing he's the killer. Haeri secures Dalgun's release, saying NIS needs to question him. At headquarters, they investigate Samuel, but find nothing. While showering, Dalgun recalls the symbol Sangmi drew and recognizes it from Jerome's chest. He rushes out, forgetting his clothes, leading to an awkward moment with Haeri. Later, Kong discovers the symbol belongs to a terrorist organization in East Asia, but the leader remains unknown. Meanwhile, Jerome tortures Woogie in an abandoned factory. Dalgun and Haeri visit Jessica again, asking about Samuel. She's heard the name but knows little. She contacts Lily to investigate. Dalgun seeks a meeting with President Gukpyo, who refuses. As Gukpyo leaves the Blue House, Dalgun intercepts him, revealing he might be framed and the real culprit could be someone else. Gukpyo is stunned. Yoonhan, still on 4, visits NIS and hands over the offshore account details, wanting the case resolved. Parliament votes Gukpyo out of office, and key officials are arrested. Yoonhan watches from his hospital bed as protests erupt across South Korea. Overwhelmed, Gukpyo nearly takes poison in his car but recalls Dalgun's words and stops. He later calls Dalgun for a private meeting, apologizing for not acting sooner. Dalgun is frustrated, believing early action could have changed everything. Gukpyo offers to help with the investigation. Dalgun then meets Edward Park, where he sees Mickey. Suddenly, he realizes Michael's girlfriend was Asian, just like Mickey. Spotting the terrorist symbol on her arm, he connects the dots. Edward Park is Samuel, and Mickey was behind Michael's murder. Dalgun confronts Edward, demanding to know why he orchestrated everything. Edward claims it was for Korea's greater good, saying great achievements require sacrifices. When he pulls a gun, Dalgun shoots him in the arm, but Mickey arrives with reinforcements. Edward then reveals a live hostage situation, threatening to kill Haeri and the bereaved families if Dalgun doesn't surrender. Outnumbered, Dalgun is knocked unconscious and imprisoned in the same factory as Woogie. Edward orders the factory burned down. The next day, Haeri searches for Dalgun, but he's missing. At headquarters, Taewung informs her of a fire at an abandoned factory, supposedly killing Dalgun and Woogie. Devastated, she mourns, holding the bullet necklace she gave him. However, Dalgun survives, thanks to Lily and Kim Do-soo, who break in to save him. While they manage to rescue Dalgun, Woogie perishes. Meanwhile, Edward summons Hong, now acting president, and reveals he is Samuel. Edward demands that Hong appoint only his chosen ministers. Hong, doubtful of his public support, is reassured that the upcoming oil drilling project will secure his presidency. But Edward warns that failure means replacement. Determined to avenge Dalgun, Haeri vows revenge. Meanwhile, Dalgun, now in hiding, asks Lily and Do-soo to keep his survival secret to protect Haeri. He offers to pay them for their help, but they laugh, knowing he can't afford them. He then calls Gukpyo for financial backing, who grants him access to an offshore account. Jessica calls Lily for an update. Lily reveals Edward is Samuel, shocking Jessica. She then informs Jessica that a wealthy client has bought her services, leaving Jessica betrayed. Jessica pleads for one last favor, to contact John and Mark's headquarters in America. Lily agrees. As Jessica is escorted back to her cell, she spots Jerome and panics. That night, Haeri devises a plan to infiltrate prison and extract information from Jessica, knowing Jerome won't allow them to meet otherwise. The next day, Haeri fakes a money laundering case and is sent to jail. She publicly fights with Jessica, making it appear personal. Jessica eventually reveals that Samuel is Edward Park. Shocked, Haeri maintains her act. Edward, controlling everything from the shadows, visits Haeri, suspicious of her presence. She convinces him she's there to take revenge on Jessica and claims Sangmi's information was false. Edward, intrigued, offers to help her get bail. Meanwhile, Jessica also tries to gain Edward's trust, vowing revenge against John and Mark. Believing their stories, Edward releases both women. Jessica invites Haeri to the Kingdom of Kyria, promising a chance to take revenge on Edward. Haeri agrees. Meanwhile, Dalgun joins a U.S. Black Ops team for a weapons facility raid. After the mission, he catches the captain stealing a biohazardous tube. When confronted, The captain refuses to explain. Ignoring Lily's warning to stay out of it, Dalgun eliminates the entire squad. Jerome arrives to secure the tubes, but Dalgun detonates a bomb, exposing him to the biohazard. As Jerome writhes in agony, Dalgun crushes the antidote, forcing him to confess that the tubes were meant for a biochemical attack in Kyria, backed by the global finance group XS. Dalgun then kills Jerome with a grenade. Edward, Yunhan, and Mickey travel to Kyria to seize control of the oil project. Meanwhile, Haeri arrives to meet the prince, unaware that Dalgun, now on a U.S. mission, has unknowingly been assigned to target her. His sniper partner shoots at her car, forcing it to stop. When she steps out, Dalgun is stunned. Before his partner can fire again, Dalgun kills him to protect her. Haeri escapes, never realizing Dalgun was there. The rest of the story will unfold in the next sequel. Thanks so much for watching. You're amazing, and we'd love for you to stick around. Hit subscribe and let's dive into more great stories.